I bought the 24mm G Master about a year ago, and it has become one of my favorite lenses. Hey, my name's Jake, and I create content here to help solo creators on the go. So I do lots of camera, lens, and drone reviews and tips and tutorials on how to use those. So if that's things that interest you, then consider subscribing. Today we're talking about the 24mm G Master. I bought this lens about a year ago, mostly just to do some astrophotography stuff, but it has become one of my favorite lenses for both photo work and video work, especially now that the A7 IV has arrived with focus breathing compensation. The main reason I bought this lens and I was willing to spend as much money as this lens costs is for photo work, and especially low light photo work. But this thing takes incredible photos regardless of where you are and what you shoot. It really is an excellent lens. It is one of the sharpest lenses that I've ever used, and it's sharp all the way edge to edge, and it's incredibly sharp even wide open at f1.4, which is amazing if you do astrophotography work or very low light stuff. This lens performs incredibly well. It is really nice bokeh rendering in the background, and you can get a pretty close focus distance with this. The main reason I bought this lens was for photo work, and mostly for astrophotography, because it's something I love doing up here, especially in the winter when we have long, very long, dark nights. But this thing excels at so many different kinds of photos, and the more I've used it, the more I've really enjoyed using it for photos. One thing that really stood out to me about this lens when I started using it is how sharp it is, even wide open at f1.4. It is incredibly sharp all the way from edge to edge, and that is just amazing to be able to use it wide open at f1.4, because you can use it in really low light situations and you don't have to stop it down to get a little bit better sharpness. And another thing that stands out to me is on the opposite end of f1.4, when you stop down all the way to f16 and you want to get nice sun stars or starbursts, this lens actually gives you really, really nice starbursts. And because it has 11 aperture blades, they really come out well and have lots of very clear, really nicely defined starbursts, which is nice. And I haven't noticed that this lens suffers too much from flaring. I mean, it does obviously have a little bit of flaring, but it's really not that bad considering it's a 24mm, and I've shot with it in some pretty harsh conditions. Now for video work, at first, I didn't like this lens at all because it has a lot of focus breathing. Most of the G Master primes do have a fair amount of focus breathing, but then they came out with the A7 IV, and the A7 IV has focus breathing compensation, which is basically where the camera knows how much it needs to crop in and how to compensate for the lens as it focuses. So essentially, it takes focus breathing totally out of the equation. Now, as far as the lens itself, everything it films is beautiful, and especially if you're shooting in, with really shallow depth of field, the fact that you have really good autofocus in the A7S III, the A7 IV, the A1, all of which I've shot with this lens, it just handles those situations beautifully because it has really good autofocus in it. Sony's put a really great autofocus system in this lens. But now with the focus breathing compensation, it takes it to a whole nother level in the fact that you can shoot at incredibly shallow depths of field and there's no focus breathing at all in the footage. Now, yes, it does crop in to do that, but if you frame yourself up and you know what you want, then it's amazing. But a whole nother reason I bought this lens was to be able to film at night under nothing but moonlight. I wanted to be able to go out and film myself, shooting stars, shooting the aurora, hopefully someday, if I can ever get everything to work, the weather and my schedule to align so I can go out and shoot the aurora with the time that the aurora is actually on display. But with this lens, you can get just I mean, this footage here. It still kills me that I can film myself in the moonlight at ISO 51000 and get a usable video. We are here. There's the moon, which is going to be a lunar eclipse. So I thought it'd be cool to film it or time-lapse it with the Tamron 35 to 150. It's incredible to me that I can go out and shoot myself with nothing but moonlight and stars with something like the A7S III and this lens, or in a lot of cases the A7 IV and this lens. I use the A7 III most of the time because it goes much higher in ISO and it keeps it cleaner at much higher ISOs. So like 40 to 80,000 ISO, I can still get some usable stuff out of the A7S III, which is mind-blowing because it makes it look almost like the noonday sun. But it's incredible to be able to film yourself in such low light situations. Now, if you're not pushing the extreme, insane low light like that, this lens performs really well and you can get incredibly beautiful imagery and video out of this lens. Because the lens has no built-in stabilization, I don't really use it as a vlogging lens. I use this, the 24 to 105G, which has some image stabilization built in, and it definitely makes a difference. It certainly helps get better stabilization. But even without stabilization, this lens does work well as a vlogging quote-unquote lens where you can hand hold it and hold it out, but it's a little tight. I think something like the 20mm 1.8, which I'll have a review of coming soon, works a little bit better. But, in a pinch, this lens will definitely work, especially if you lock it off on a tripod and stand a few feet away. There are a few things you need to be aware of about this lens. One, it is weather sealed, which is great for somebody like me. You shoot out in all kinds of extreme conditions. But one of my favorite things about it is it has a manual aperture ring. So you can set your aperture manually to whatever it is, and the camera won't override it. This ring overrides the camera no matter what. But if you want to control it from in the camera, you can set it to auto, and then the camera, whatever you set through the camera body, will control the lens. And actually, yeah, that's really nice. I end up using the aperture ring a lot. Nice thing about it too is it's clicked or declicked. So if you're shooting photos and you want to be able to smoothly change your aperture from wide open to stop down to f/16, you can do that, or you can leave it clicked for doing photography and really being able to get right on your different points of aperture. It does have a button here to be able to use for focus hold or program it to whatever you want in the Sony camera. And then it has an autofocus manual focus switch, which I use a lot more than I ever thought I would, because when I'm out doing star work, I don't like to get into the menus of the Sony camera if I don't have to, so I can just switch it from autofocus to manual focus and then get it. And I have my camera set up to where anytime I touch the manual focus wheel, anytime I touch the focus wheel and it's in manual focus, it automatically will punch in. Overall, the build quality is really nice, and something else that I love about this lens is it's really lightweight. It doesn't weigh much. It works great on gimbals. And yeah, because it doesn't weigh much, I don't worry about throwing it in my bag and taking it with me places. It has a 67mm filter thread, which is great because most of my ND filters and variable ND filters are all 67mm. Apparently I need to clean this lens a little bit because it looks a little dirty. Overall, this lens is really solidly built. It's really well weather sealed, and it is an absolute blast to film and to shoot with, especially now that the A7 IV has focus breathing compensation. Now, at $1,400, it's not cheap, but you can find it on sale occasionally from sometimes $1,300, maybe even $1,250 US. And if you can and you have the budget for it, I would highly recommend you pick it up if it's on sale and it's a lens that you need. One thing that people wonder about is what kind of lens, what kind of glass should I invest in? Should I get a better camera body or should I get better glass? And I always recommend that you get better glass. This lens has now been with me through 3 different camera bodies, the A7 III, the A7S III, which I'm filming on, and the A7 IV. I've used this on the A1, the A9 II, I've used it on the A7R III. I might have even used it on the A7R4 when I've used that from time to time, but I've used this lens on a lot of different bodies, and it will continue to last me for a long time, regardless of what camera bodies I use, just because glass will tend to carry you through a lot of different camera bodies, and this lens is no exception to that. If you want to see other lenses that work really well on Sony cameras that I've tested here at Alaska, click or tap right there. I'll see you in one of those videos. As always, if you have questions, ask me in the comments below or join my live stream, which happens Wednesday nights at 4 p.m. Alaska time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, where we can actually have a conversation. Till then, I'll see you again soon in the next video. Cheers.